There are growing calls to scrap the controversial plan to rebuild the Gabba. John Coates made a stunning intervention on this front yesterday. Now, former Queensland Premier Peter Beattie has joined those calls, and he joins me now. Good to see you, Peter Beattie. First
Good
of
to
all,
see you. You're looking well.
Thank you. You too. The sunflowers are making you look particularly bright this morning. But why have you agreed with John Coates on this one?
Look, I think most people in Queensland are sick of the politics on this. There's a lot of politics, local Green politics, the Lord Mayor wanting to get elected. There's election at the end of the year. John Coates cut through all that nonsense and basically said the Gabba's the wrong decision, and I agree with him. Because if you look at Brisbane's facilities, Suncorp would be absolutely ideal for the opening and closing ceremonies. QE2 could be for the athletics, Chandler for swimming, and it uses local facilities that already exist. But Stephen Miles, the Premier, at least has had the guts to come out and say, let's have a relook at the Gabba. It's frankly, I think, derailing public support for the Olympics. And if we can follow John Coates' advice and cut to the heart of this, and that is change where the opening and closing ceremonies are, change where the athletics are, then you can actually diffuse it.
Yeah, right. Well, obviously, John Coates and Anastasia Palaszczuk were pretty close when she was Premier. Surely he's been trying to get her to do this, behind the scenes for some time. Now he obviously thinks with the change of Premier it might be a bit easier?
Look, I think you've hit the nail on the head. I think John Coates has always had this view, simply because what the IOC want is to have an event run at as low a cost as possible, because they don't want global stories about overruns or cost blowouts, because that doesn't help the IOC's reputation in getting a new bidder down the road. They want this to be run as smooth as possible. I've got no doubt John Coates was telling Anastasia Palaszczuk not to do the Gabba. Now, Stephen Miles has clearly decided, had the courage to say the Gabba's not the right decision. And he was the deputy at the time, and I see criticism about this. But, when you're the Premier, you expect everyone to toe the line. So at the end of it, he's at least having another view. And John Coates, I think, has just cut through the nonsense. And the reality is, as you know, I was chair of the Commonwealth Games. Had Brisbane been the host of the Commonwealth Games in 2080 instead of the Gold Coast, I can tell you that the opening and closing ceremonies would have been at Suncorp, and the athletics would have been at QE2, and the swimming would have been at Chandler. The shooting would have been where at Chandler as well. I mean, at the end of the day, the existing facilities can be used. They can save a lot of money, and they can derail a lot of the politics and derail a lot of the criticism of the Olympics.
That's right, and it's all about maintaining that public support, because it is getting harder and harder for governments to justify the money that they spend on Olympics, particularly in a cost of living crisis. I mean, we saw that big call from Daniel Andrews in Victoria.
Well, exactly, and that's part of the problem. I mean, I have my criticism of the Victorian government, as you know, in relation to that decision, because I don't know that the fundamentals they put up are actually accurate.
No, it was a little underhanded, to say the very least.
It wasn't as open as it should have been. But look, that's a different issue, obviously. But you do need public support. And from Brisbane's point of view, there is a benefit in the Olympics, because tourism is one of the biggest industries in Queensland. It's a shot in the arm globally for Queensland. The other second thing that's really important is, because of costs in Sydney, a lot of people are moving to Queensland. You've got to have infrastructure to support them. Now, if out of the Olympics there are better transport corridors, there are easier ways for people to get around, that's a win. And if you look at the Commonwealth Games, the big wins out of that were light rail. These are long-term legacies. Light rail on the Gold Coast. In addition to that, heavy rail was upgraded. A lot of the road bottlenecks were removed. So there are permanent benefits. But you need the public with you, as you quite correctly point out. And if you lose the public, then frankly, you lose the benefits.
Well, look, Brisbane is the second best city in Australia, so it surely will play a very good host. Now, before I let you go, I put this public call out about 2 weeks ago. This is after Anthony Albanese broke the promise on stage 3 tax cuts. And I just put it out there. I said, why don't more politicians do Peter Beattie's these days? And that was apologise, say, look, we got it wrong, and move on. Can you answer that?
Oh, look, I think what's happened is a lot of politicians are just too gutless to do it. And because it takes courage. Social media, everyone piles on and criticises. But look, everyone knows at the end of the day, no one's perfect. We all make mistakes. Politicians get things wrong. Circumstances change, financial and economic. People just got to go out and say, look, I got it wrong. or things have changed, and be open and honest about it. That's the only way to do it. Australians are really smart. They're cynical about leaders. They're anti-authoritarian, but they respect people who are honest. And you just got to be upfront with people. And too many politicians are gutless and run away. That's the heart of it.
Yep, okay. Well, some frank advice from you there, Peter Beattie. I like that. The Queensland election not far away. Can Labor get another term, or are they cooked?
Look, I think it'll be close. I think Stephen Miles is working very hard to get there. I think so is the opposition leader, David Crisafulli. I'm out of politics these days, but look, it will be very tight. This will be the closest to the Queensland election, I think, probably since 2015. But you've got a new leader. I don't think they could have won under Anastasia Palaszczuk, to be frank. But they've got a chance under Stephen Miles. He's making a go of it. So is Crisafulli. So this is going to be tough, and it'll be close. Good for your ratings.
Always. As I said, love the second best city in Australia, Brisbane being front and centre. And
well, I've got to ask you, so what is the best? You've got to tell me Sydney.
Of course. And look, I've lived in both, so I feel like I'm a good judge.
You are.
Peter Beattie, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. Thanks so much.
Thank you for having me, and good luck.